Trump, we don't know what he's going to say during the Bitcoin conference, but there's a lot of rumors about maybe strategic reserve, using Bitcoin as strategic reserve for the dollar, for the US government. They're even talking about it on CNBC. This is a short clip. Let's play this. Can it actually happen? Can we actually see Bitcoin be a reserve for the US dollar?
And so, yeah, he's going to speak very positively about Bitcoin here at the conference.
Do you think that these favorable comments could go so far as to indicate that he'd be open to it being a reserve currency for the U.S.?
Yeah, so there were some rumblings of that on X this week. It could be something that's very difficult to get done, but it is possible. The Justice Department holds about 200,000 units of Bitcoin. So the United States is the largest holder of Bitcoin. And so they could easily just...
First of all, that I think he means by country, not as just a holder, because Saylor and MicroStrategy has more. BlackRock certainly has more. So I think he means by country.
Move that over to the Department of Treasury and start right there and have 13 billion worth of Bitcoin on the balance sheet. So it is a possible move. It just could be tough to get done. But what happens is the Justice Department, in holding these units of Bitcoin, they've been a random seller in the space. And so if they move from being a random seller at times, which could push the price of Bitcoin down, over to being a long-term hodler, well, that could be really good for the space and push prices up.
Well, that's stating the obvious. Obviously, rather than selling, you hold. Of course, that's going to help the price, right? But it's going to be even better if the U.S. declares that Bitcoin is going to be held as a reserve, either just as a strategic reserve or reserve for the dollar. Absolutely huge. So there's that, and there's possibly other stuff, right? But, in terms of what he's saying, random sells, right? We do see the U.S. government, the Department of Justice moved about $4 million worth of Bitcoin today. Did they sell it? Or are they preparing for something else? Who knows, right? But, $4 million here or there really means nothing, especially compared to the ETF inflows. Of course, we don't have the full tally. We'll get it tomorrow. But the tally from a couple weeks ago to now is absolutely massive. Last week alone, look at it. 400 million, 3753, 400 million, 300 million. You're talking about over $1 billion of inflow last week, okay, in the US, not counting the other ETFs or anything like that. But just today alone, BlackRock took in $524 million. In one single day, one ETF took in $500 million worth of Bitcoin. So I don't know what the tally is going to be tomorrow. It could be like 700 million. It could be $1 billion. Okay, what I do know is this: the big boys, the institutions, and the hedge funds, and the public trade companies, private companies, even retail investors, and the fund managers themselves, BlackRock and others, they are buying. BlackRock, you may not understand, but they're filling their other funds with their IBIT fund. So essentially, they're buying their own. So massive. And this is not going to stop. In the future, we will get $1 billion inflows, $2 billion inflows, $3 billion inflows per day for just a single fund. When in the bull market, when we're truly toward the top of the bull market and Bitcoin's above $100,000, I can't even imagine what the inflows are, right? So this is absolutely fantastic, but I like to point out, asterisk, this is a fantastic short term. Long term, this sucks. No one really wants BlackRock and all the funds to hold such enormous amounts of Bitcoin. Bitcoin was created for the people, by the people. That's why I'm telling you guys, DCA and load up as much sats, as much Bitcoins as you can before it becomes too expensive, or before too much of it has been bought by the big institutions and whales. Here's a staggering stat. Even when I was investing in ETFs, like back in 2000, the dot-com bubble, I remember QQQ was one of my go-to ETFs because it was like technology. It was basically like it tracks NASDAQ, right? The IBIT Bitcoin ETF from BlackRock already surpassed that fund, which actually came out like 20-something years ago. Almost, probably maybe even longer, 30 years ago. The BlackRock IBIT Trust is going up so fast, it's unbelievable, right? According to this, it's the overall year-to-date flow is the 4th largest, right? And it doesn't have the year-to-date returns. I'm curious. But if you look at even the volume, it's the 2nd largest. It's crazy how much interest there is in Bitcoin and Bitcoin ETFs, but overall for Bitcoin, right? And we're not at 6 figures yet. Wait until we hit 80,000, 90,000, 100,000, what the volume and the intake inflows will be. Absolutely crazy at that point. If you want to comment on anything I've said in this video, make sure you head over to the Roundtable. The Roundtable is a new social media platform created for conversations. And best of all, it's spam-free, bot-free, unlike here on YouTube. And you could have conversations with me and others like Altcoin Daily, Scott Melker, Mauro Nafal, and many others are joining daily. And you also get rewarded in tokens for doing so. So check out the new Roundtable. Click the link in the description below. And here's what's crazier. According to this, we have about 62 days of what we're going through before we really start going parabolic. This is looking at the 2015 or 2017 cycle and 2021 cycle. Averaged together, if you look at the red, you could see versus the gray and the blue, we're kind of moving how we should. And in approximately 2 months, that's when we start skyrocketing upwards to what? $300,000, $600,000 according to this. That's not too long. Could come anytime. We could be fast. We could be ahead of the curve. Okay, because of all the ETF inflows, right? And we got some major catalysts also that's happening right now, right? And there will be more catalysts happening in the future. Here's one that's a megaphone pattern, which we're forming, right? And I don't have other ones like the Wyckoff accumulation, which we have seen time and time again. It's looking like we're breaking out of that. There's just so much bullishness going on right now.